You know, most people who worked around Michael never talk. They sign the papers, they take the check, and they disappear. I never did, because what I saw, twice, broke something in me that can't be fixed with money or threats. The first time was 1968 in a cramped little house on 2300 Jackson Street, Gary, Indiana. The second time was 1987 on a grainy black and white security tape from Neverland Ranch that nobody was ever supposed to see. Both times, something tiny, something everybody felt sorry for, did the impossible the second it opened its mouth. Tonight, for the first time in 56 years, I'm showing you that tape. But if you want to understand why it still makes me shake, we have to go back to the worn-out carpet and the bare feet first. My name is Raymond Tolliver. In 1968, I was 21 years old, a junior tape op working for a tiny indie label out of a basement on Broadway in Gary. One humid August night, the phone rings at 11:47 p.m. The voice on the other end was pure steel. "This is Joseph Jackson. Bring your gear to 2300 Jackson Street tomorrow at noon. My boys are ready." Click. No hello, no please. I laughed. Everybody in Gary knew Joe Jackson was crazy. He had his kids drilling 8 hours a day like Marines. People said he beat perfection into them. I figured I'd show up, record some cute little family band, collect my $40, and go home. I pulled up at 11:58. The street smelled like hot steel and fried onions. The house was so small it looked embarrassed to be there. Paint peeling, one window cracked, a single bicycle with no tires leaning against the porch. Joe opened the door before I knocked. No smile, just, "You're late." I wasn't, but you didn't argue with Joe. Inside, the living room was maybe 12 by 14. Brown shag carpet so worn you could see the padding in spots. A couch with the stuffing poking out. 5 little boys standing in a perfect line like soldiers. Bare feet, all of them. It was 88 degrees outside, and the house had no AC. Joe said sweat built character. The youngest one couldn't have been more than 9. Afro like a dandelion, eyes too big for his face, wearing a grown man's white shirt tied in a knot at the waist so it wouldn't drag on the floor. He was holding a broken microphone stand like it was a teddy bear. I remember thinking, man, somebody should call child services. This kid looks scared to death. Sitting on the couch was a white guy in a cheap suit, Gordon Keith from Steeltown Records. He looked bored, fanning himself with a legal pad. He'd driven up from Indianapolis because Joe had been blowing his phone for weeks. Joe didn't blink, just listen. They started with an up-tempo thing, some original Joe wrote. The brothers were tight, I'll give you that. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, they moved like one person. Little Michael danced in the middle like a spark plug, hitting every step. Cute, really cute. Gordon checked his watch twice. Then Joe said, "Okay, one more. Michael, sing the blues one." The room changed. The older boys stepped back. Michael walked to the center of that ratty carpet, bare feet sinking into the worn fibers, and stood under the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. He looked even smaller, fragile, like one wrong note would shatter him. I had the reel-to-reel running. I still have that tape. I'll never let anyone hear it. Some things are too sacred. He closed his eyes, took one breath, and opened his mouth. The song was Tobacco Road, not the pop version, the nasty, dirty Nashville teens version, the one that sounds like cigarettes and broken dreams. I was born in a dump. Mother died. Daddy got drunk. Left me here to die or grow in the middle of Tobacco Road. A 9-year-old child singing about poverty, rage, abandonment, like he'd lived every single line in a past life. His voice cracked on purpose, not because he couldn't hit the note, but because the pain had to break somewhere. When he got to the part, "I'm gonna leave and get a job," with the help and the grace from above, he looked straight at Gordon Keith and held the note so long I thought the kid was gonna pass out. The room went dead silent. You could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Gordon's mouth was actually open. Joe had his arms crossed, but I saw his eyes shining, the only time I ever saw that man close to tears. 90 seconds. That's all it took. 90 seconds for a little boy standing barefoot on ruined carpet to rewrite every rule every adult in that room thought they knew about talent, age, and possibility. Gordon stood up, cleared his throat twice, and said, "Joe, get these kids in the car. We're cutting a record next week." Just like that, the ripple started right there on that worn-out carpet. That day followed me for the next 40 years. Every time I was in a studio and some arrogant artist acted like the world owed them something, I'd think about that tiny kid who didn't have shoes and sang like God had personally handed him the microphone. Genius doesn't wait for permission. It just shows up barefoot and dares you to keep up. I ended up working sound for some of the biggest acts in the world, partly because I chased that feeling for the rest of my life, but I never forgot where it started. Fast forward 19 years, 1987. I'm now 40 years old, running front of house sound for the Bad Tour rehearsals at Havenhurst, the Encino compound. One day, Michael pulls me aside. "Raymond Tolliver from Gary." He remembered me. 19 years later, the king of pop remembered the skinny white kid with the reel-to-reel from Jackson Street. He hugged me like a brother. A week later, a baby chimpanzee shows up in a crate. Bubbles, 3 years old, ripped from his mother in some research lab. It weighed maybe 18 pounds, arms clutched around his own body, screaming this high-pitched, terrified sound. Everybody felt sorry for him, even the bodyguards. He looked so small in that huge mansion. Lost, like he didn't belong in this world. Michael carried him everywhere in a little papoose, fed him candy, dressed him in tiny outfits, let him sleep in his bed. The press ate it up, Wacko Jacko and his monkey. But I saw something else. Bubbles watched everything Michael did, every dance move, every vocal run, every hee-hee, every spin. He never took his eyes off Michael. It was obsession. It was love. Late one night in '88, I was doing a late-night system check in the private dance studio at Neverland, the one Michael had built with the mirrored walls and the sprung floor. The security guy asked me to pull the overnight tapes because Michael thought someone was sneaking in and moving things around. I sat in the monitor room at 3:17 a.m. and started fast-forwarding through empty hallways. Then I got to camera 7, the dance studio. Timestamp 2:46 a.m. The room is dark except for the exit sign glow, and there, in the middle of the floor, is Bubbles, alone. No Michael, no trainers, nobody. A cassette player on the floor is playing Billie Jean on low volume. Michael must have left it running. Bubbles stands there for a second, tiny little guy in a miniature Bad Tour jacket Michael had made for him. He looks around like he's making sure no one's watching. Then he does it. He moonwalks. Not a clumsy imitation, perfect. Heel-toe, glide, circle, freeze, kick, spin, the entire sequence. Then he hits the hee-hee, grabs his crotch exactly like Michael, and throws his head back. A 3-year-old chimpanzee just channeled the greatest performer who ever lived, alone in a dark room at 3 in the morning, because he wanted to. I rewound it 6 times. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the VHS. That was the second time in my life something tiny and vulnerable opened its mouth, or in this case its feet, and rewrote reality. Genius doesn't wait for permission. It didn't care that Michael was 9 and barefoot in Gary. It didn't care that Bubbles was a lab chimp who wasn't even supposed to have a soul. It just showed up.
I kept that tape hidden for 36 years. Michael made us all sign NDAs that would bury